If you model modern era, signal bridges are essential. Let me show you how I built this one. Hey everyone, welcome back to BNSF Chicago Sub in N-Scale. In this video I'm going to show you how to build a Showcase Miniatures signal bridge. Now this isn't going to be an in-depth tutorial, this is more a watch me build a signal bridge video. But if you've got any questions, please put them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them as best I can. This is the first time I built one of the signal bridges, so I did make a couple of mistakes along the way, but the end result was still really pleasing. I know what I did wrong this time, but I've still got many of these bridges to build, so I'll get better as I progress. So let's get started with the build. Today I'm going to build the Showcase Miniatures signal bridge. So let's see what's in this kit. Underneath the front cover you have the instructions. Now I'll make a copy of the instructions as I like keeping the diagram in front of me when I'm building. So next up we have the sheet of etched metal parts along with the wooden walkway, which is made of laser cut wood sheet. So the sheet contains enough parts to build one complete signal bridge with the left and right towers, as well as the brackets to hold the signal heads in place. There are two walkways included, enough for both towers. You can see that clearly in this photograph where you can see the walkways go all the way across. What's also included are the cast metal parts for the footings for the signal bridges. Now these go at the bottom of each tower. A very comprehensive set of instructions are included with a very clear parts diagram. Each page has very clear illustrations showing each step in detail. The tools I'm going to use are a very sharp scalpel for removing the parts from the sheet, a file to remove the burrs from the removed sheet, and a couple of pairs of tweezers, a self-closing pair and a normal pair for gripping parts once removed. Now the first step is to start removing the parts from the sheet. Now I prefer using a scalpel, but there are many other tools that can do the same job. Now carefully break off the tabs and remove the part from the sheet. Now this next step is very important. You need to use the file to remove the burrs from the part. You need to make sure the edge is completely smooth, otherwise it will interfere with putting the kit together. This process has to be repeated for each side of the part and for each part in the kit. This will ensure that all the parts fit together correctly and will result in a nicely finished model at the end. Now we continue removing the pieces to construct the left tower of this signal bridge. The majority of the steps for this left tower are repeated for the right tower, apart from the installation of the ladder, so I'm only going to show you the construction of the left tower. Now that the parts have been removed and cleaned up, we're ready to start construction. The instructions provided are very clear in what to do, but just be careful with the left and right towers as there's slight differences between the pieces, so make sure you make a note of which pieces are for left and right towers. Do a test fit first to make sure the tabs fit into the holes correctly. I found that with a few of them I had to make the holes slightly bigger. Once you're happy with the fit of the parts, you can start applying the glue. Now I'm using the fast set CAA for this. I found it a lot easier to construct this as it sets very quickly and I can move on to the next part. I found it was essential with this first part of the tower as there's nothing to hold the parts in place until the glue sets. So if you use the fast set glue, it'll harden almost immediately and you can move on to the next stage. So the recommendation in the instructions is to just use a bit of glue on each tab, puts the parts together, and then once the glue is dried on the tabs, then run a line of glue along the seam of the parts. This way you can ensure you have a solid join, but at least putting it on the tabs to start with means it's held in place. So that's the one upright of the tower completed. Now to do the inside part. Now for this bit you need to make sure that there's a gap between these two parts. There must be 90 degrees to the upright. I find it easier to just put a dab of glue on one of the tabs just to hold it in place, and before it had fully dried I moved them to the 90-degree position. Then I can start adding glue to the rest of the tabs and along the seams. Now here you can see the gap between the two of them and the 90 degrees to the upright. Now once again just add a bit of glue to the end of each tab, let it set, and then you can add glue along the seams. Now here's the finished part showing the gap between the frames. Now we're going to repeat this step for the other side of the tower. The only difference with this side of the tower is this piece needs to be slotted between the two uprights. Again, do a dry run to make sure it fits correctly. And what I find easier to do is to put the one end in, glue the tabs in place, and then before they're dry, just slot it into the other side of the frame. It's a bit fiddly to do, but once you've got it in place, it's ready to be glued. Now we move on to the next step, which is the top frame of the tower. Now here's the finished top frame of the tower. Now to go on to the bottom frame. Now this bottom frame is quite tricky, as you need to twist it to get the tab into the hole in the frame. You need a bit of patience to do this bit, but it will eventually fit. Now that I've finally got it in place, I can start adding the glue. Now make sure all the tabs are securely glued in place. So here's the left tower with all the main structural elements attached. Now next up is to add the ladders and the railings. Now we're going to remove the ladder from the sprue. Now take care with this bit, as the ladder is very fragile and can bend easily. Take special care when filing the burrs off the ladder. Now the next step is to bend the top of the ladder using a drill bit. The instructions tell you what diameter to use. Unfortunately, this step happened off camera, but you can see the result here. Now once again there's a fiddly bit, and that's installing the brackets for the ladder. Now it's essential to file the burrs off these completely, as this helps them sit flat against the frame of the tower. Now that I've got the brackets attached to the ladder, I can now place it against the tower and get it glued in place. What I haven't shown is how to mark up the ladder so that the brackets are in the correct place. I do this by putting the ladder against the tower and marking where the horizontal struts are. These marks are where I will attach the brackets to the ladder. Now put a dab of glue on each horizontal strut and hold the ladder in place until the glue dries. Now just check that the brackets are securely attached, and if any sections are loose, just put a dab of glue to hold them in place. Also check that the ladder is aligned vertically with the tower. Now after double checking everything is glued, here is the ladder in place. Now the next step is to add the top railings. Now when removing the railings, be extra careful, as these are even more fragile than the ladder. Now test fit the railings in place just to make sure that the tabs go into the holes correctly. What I did find is I did have to open up a few of these holes with a very fine drill bit, as they weren't quite large enough. Once you're happy with the fit, just put a dab of glue into each hole and just hold in place until set. Just make sure the railing is perfectly 90 degrees to the tower. Now just repeat this step for the other railing. Now just double check that the railings are attached and check that the glue is dried. Now you can check the left tower to make sure everything is in place. So here's the completed left tower. You can see it's looking really good. Now you can repeat all the steps to create the right hand tower. The only difference is the right hand tower has no ladder, and it has an end bracket that helps align the two parts of the signal bridge. So here are both towers. The way they're designed is that the notches on the left tower fit into corresponding holes on the bracket on the right hand tower. If you are using the extension pieces to widen the signal bridge, these tabs are also used to hold everything in place. Now the basic kit is designed for a double track, but if you've got a triple or quadruple track, you can add these extension pieces. Now they're designed to fit between these two towers, and you can add as many as extensions as you require. Now here's the first signal bridge I built with one extension, just showing how everything has been put together. As you can see, once painted and weathered, it comes together as a really nice looking kit. These are purchased separately, but just to show you what the extension kit looks like. Now the final part of this build is to install the footings at the base of the towers. Now these footings are made from cast metal and are meant to represent concrete footings. Now they're easily attached with just a drop of CA, and again I'm just using the fast setting CA for this. Just hold the tower firmly in place while the CA dries. So here is the finished left tower with the footing attached. Now repeat again for the right tower. Now here is the final signal bridge with one extension attached. Here you can see the wooden walkway that's been installed. As this was my first attempt, you can see I haven't got the alignment quite right, but I'll fix that with my next model. I'm very happy with how this kit came together. A few fiddly bits, but they'll become easier with each kit I build. Now the final step is going to be adding the signal heads. I'll cover that in a future video. So another quality product from Showcase Miniatures. What I love about these kits is that they're very expandable, so you can just buy the extra extension kits and make them as wide as you want, depending on how many tracks you've got. Now most of my main section of the layout is going to be a 4-track main, so I need to do at least 2 to 3 extensions for each signal bridge. The first section is coming off the helix. I've only had to use one extension, and in fact one section I've just used the signal bridge as it is, just left the 2 towers together without any extension. So in a future video I'm going to show you how to add the signal heads to these signal bridges. Now I'm going to need to add quite a few of these signal heads, just as I said, because I've got 4-track mains, I've got bi-directional running on all of those mains, so there are a lot of signals to add. And of course all the crossovers and turnouts I've got. So that just adds extra signals in for the diverging routes. So to be sure you don't miss any of those updates, click the subscribe button down below and click that little bell icon to be notified of all upcoming videos. So as always, thank you for watching. See you soon.